안녕하십니까. 퓨어스토리지 코리아에서 채널 테크니컬 컨설턴트를 담당하고 있는 노용신 이사입니다. 이번 시간에는 가트너의 리서치 담당 부사장이신 줄리아 파머 씨와 퓨어스토리지의 전략 담당 부사장인 맷 킥스밀러와의 대담을 통해 비즈니스의 향상을 가져다주는 인프라스트럭처 기반의 혁신에 대해 알아보도록 하겠습니다. 가트너의 줄리아 파머 씨는 통찰력이 뛰어나고 실용적인 애널리스트 중에 한 분으로 줄리아를 초대한 이유는 줄리아가 최근에 인프라의 미래에 대한 연구를 발표했기 때문입니다. 현대적인 인프라팀의 진화에 대한 일종의 선언문이라고 할까요? 우선 인프라 미래에 대한 연구에 대해 줄리아의 비전에 대해 살펴보도록 하겠습니다.
I've been thinking about future of infrastructure and storage professionals' role in this for a while. But what really inspired this research is the data that we saw that CIOs are replacing IT leaders with people with no IT experience. And I was trying to find out why is it happening. And what we learned from surveys conducted by Gartner is that CIOs focusing on change of culture, looking for people with business acumen, and most important thing, they wanted infrastructure that can support change. While IT leaders still focusing on reliability, quality, and performance, but it's really the big gap between expectations from CIO to IT leaders. So right now, they don't want you to find an infrastructure that will run forever. They want you to focus on infrastructure that can support change.
Wow, that's a great point, and honestly, a very different way of thinking. Just let that sink in for a bit. For like 20 years, we've all been taught that the number one thing is reliability. That's how to not get fired. But now there's a shift to agility because just the flexibility and speed at which the business can change and evolve and operate is crucial. And so it's more important to build infrastructure that anticipates that change and is ready for it, while being, of course, reliable. But what do you think that means practically? How can people build in this agility?
Well, first of all, we need to figure out what change means to you. So I encourage you to dig a little deeper on this. What is future holds? Is your infrastructure going to be on the moon, like we just heard from NASA? Or will you have a shortage of storage experts? Will you going to be facing exponential data growth? Like some of my customers now collecting more data in a week than they collected over 10 years. Or maybe you have a new workloads coming your way, containers, AI, ML processing. So first order of business is to figure out what change means to you. And on more practical terms, we're always trying to keep it down to earth. What I recommend you doing is to really forget about storage infrastructure for a little bit and focus on infrastructure services. So how can you do this? Well, build a service catalog, data service catalog, and focus on what services you provide. For example, I provide services for virtualized machines. I provide services for HPC enterprise computing. I provide services for data image archiving. And once you figure out how many data services you have in enterprise, then you can collect the data requirements and all kind of other details about particular service. And only then and there we can focus on architecture, storage technologies, and vendors. So I've been doing it with a lot of Gartner customers right now, building data service catalog, elevating the message from provider of infrastructure to provider of data services.
Yeah, this evolution to service thinking is just fundamental to how people think about their teams. And it just cuts throughout the whole organization. I met a customer recently where the person who used to be the storage architect a few years ago now introduced himself as basically the storage service owner. And on their team, there was a block service owner and a file service owner. So I think when people embrace this service mentality, it just can cut across the whole way that you think.
스토리지 인프라에 대해서는 잠시 잊어버리고 인프라 서비스에 집중하라는 메시지가 참 인상적이네요. 데이터 서비스 카탈로그를 구축함으로써 빠르게 변하는 트렌드에 쉽게 적응할 수 있는 인프라를 구축할 수 있겠네요. 이번에는 클라우드 인프라와 오브젝트 스토리지 인프라, 그리고 빅데이터와 분석, AI를 중심으로 한 차세대 인프라 환경에 대한 대화를 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Another big change that I hear a lot from customers and infrastructure teams is learning how to kind of evolve their infrastructure to run next-gen cloud-native apps. Containers, microservices, scale-out architectures, all these ingredients and modern applications are changing infrastructure. So what advice do you have for folks who need to think about how to evolve their infrastructure for this next generation of applications?
So first of all, biggest mistake is to think you don't have to evolve your strategy. It's not just another workload. It's very unique workload with very unique requirements. So when you think about cloud native applications, you need to think about cloud native principles. If your cloud native applications will be deployed on top of containers and microservices, the infrastructure needs to adhere to those principles. For example, to be modular, to be programmable, to be intelligent. Those are the things and capabilities you need to look for in underlying infrastructure. Otherwise, you are pretty much taking a legacy infrastructure and put modern applications on top of them, which will not deliver on any agility going forward. So what specifically we're talking about? We're talking about being software defined. We're talking about being able to be deployed in the public cloud and the edge. We're talking about having granularity and be driven by APIs only. And we're talking about being able to be managed by developers.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I've seen just in our experience with this, one of the first things that really just blows customers away is the change rate. They're used to a traditional application world where we build infrastructure and try to never touch it because we want it to be reliable again. And so, you might have a storage array that gets a new volume or a new file system, a couple times a day. It's not uncommon in containerized environments to have 10,000 of these events a day. And so it's just simply not possible to use the old processes to spin up storage for 10,000 containers that might only be around for a minute or two at a time. I think another area that's kind of interesting in this is the rise of object storage, because many of these application environments need object. Do you think that's kind of a key ingredient for this world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Modern applications are being designed on top of seamless storage. And object storage becomes standard since a rise of the cloud native infrastructure. That's definitely something that people looking for when they building next generation applications. Why would you use anything else? Because we can have object storage that can be geo-distributed. It can have rich metadata, which developers just love. And it can be fast as well. So what's not to love?
Yeah, that rise of kind of fast object storage has been a more fun area of our business, where folks were just kind of used to this land of object being kind of the slow, dirt tier of storage, if you will. And now it's actually one of the most exciting areas of next-gen applications. Another area that I think is exciting in this world is the next-gen apps around big data and analytics and AI. There's a lot of hype around big data and AI over the past decade, but it feels like it's settling down now, and that's getting real. And so I'm curious how infrastructure teams, from your point of view, can help drive next-gen analytic projects and support data science teams.
First of all is we need to focus on data. When you talk to those guys, and I encourage everybody to go and learn about data for AI, where is it coming from? Where is it going to be stored? Where is it going to be processed? Does it need to be archived? All of the data flow is very unique to AI/ML process because it's not a single workload. It's many different workloads. So if you're not careful, you might end up with a sprawl of infrastructure everywhere, and you will be in a world of hurt. So you need to first learn about data. And then really, if you talk to those people, they don't talk about storage. They talk about data operations. That's what they focused on, because for them, data is the fuel. It flows from one thing to another, and they need your help to manage it for them. So to really be part of the IML workflow, you need to be in data operations, no longer storage operations, but in data operations. Of course, it requires very specific storage that can accommodate, low latency and high throughput workloads, which is pretty demanding. but it's even more scary to end up with a system that cannot handle the giant data flow.
Yeah, I think this notion of just knowing your customer, in this case the data scientist, is key. And part of the role of data scientists, they just tend to be agnostic to infrastructure. They're even disinterested, I would say, in infrastructure. And so part of your goal is to provide an as-a-service experience to them where they don't have to think about it. They just come in and do their data science work, and they can leave the infrastructure to you. That's your job.
인프라를 한번 구축해 놓으면 안정성을 유지하기 위해 절대 건드리지 않았던 때가 있다는 말이 공감이 되네요. 하지만 클라우드 네이티브 환경에서는 많은 변화가 필연적이기 때문에 이러한 변화에 대응하기 위한 인프라 구축이 필수적이겠네요. 차세대 어플리케이션을 구축하는 사람들이 찾는 기술이 오브젝트 스토리지라고 하고요. AI, 머신러닝, 워크플로우의 일부가 되려면 이제 스토리지 운영이 아니라 데이터 운영을 해야 된다고 합니다. 끝으로 인적 자원 관리 측면에서 이러한 모든 변화를 관리해야 하는 인프라 리더를 위한 조언을 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
All this change always comes down to the people, and inspiring the team you've got to the rise to the occasion, attracting new talent in the organization. What advice have you got for infrastructure leaders to manage through just the human side of all this change?
This is probably the most important change that we need to embrace. And it is very uncomfortable. I'll be honest with you, as IT practitioner myself, I like technology. I like to deal with new vendors, new products, and trying things on. But we need to get out of our comfort zone. We need to go and really become embedded in our business. Not aligned. It's no longer good enough to be aligned. We need to be embedded. We need to get out, go talk to the developers, people that designing applications, talk to database owners, and talk to the end users of your services to really figure out what are the problems they're facing and what are the business key performance indicators they have to tie into your infrastructure technology performance indicators. So I encourage people to be heroes, to be superheroes, to be data champions, to learn everything that is there to learn about data their team is holding and expand their knowledge to become versatilists. In fact, Gartner predicts already that in 5 years, more than 70% of storage professionals, you guys, will expand your job responsibilities and scope of work and knowledge beyond managing storage infrastructure. So time is now to embrace it and expand your role. It can be data operations, it can be infrastructure versatilist, it can be data ops within the AI ML angle, because we know those workloads are coming your way. But it's really time is now to get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, that's awesome advice, and ultimately very inspirational, right? Like, what's better in life than to embrace something new and grow as an organization? And when I look at this whole journey around modern infrastructure, that's what people are doing. That's what companies are taking advantage of. Is this is a real opportunity to up-level their infrastructure teams to deliver the as-a-service model. And so, there you have it: modern infrastructure and modern processes to evolve what we do as infrastructure teams.
가트너는 5년 이내에 여러분과 같은 스토리지 담당자들의 70% 이상이 스토리지 인프라 관리를 넘어서고 업무 책임과 업무 지식 범위가 더욱더 확장될 것이라고 내다보고 있습니다. 따라서 스스로의 역량을 확장해야 하고 지금 여러분께서 계신 그 안전지대에서 벗어나야 한다는 조언이 참 인상적이네요. 빠르게 움직이는 변화 속에서 경쟁력을 높이기 위해서는 인프라팀의 업무를 진일보시킬 수 있는 현대적인 인프라와 현대적인 프로세스가 필요합니다. 이상으로 비즈니스의 향상을 가져다주는 인프라스트럭처 기반의 혁신에 대해 알아보았습니다. 끝까지 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다.